Welcome back to another episode of Rib Academy. I am here. I have arrived. I am back. I told y'all I'd give y'all a full season. Now, I did take a little, not a purpose break, but I was busy. I'm not even going to sit here and say I wasn't doing nothing exotic. I was busy. We've been pumping out a shit ton of content. We got the stuff with Whistle and all that. So we're having a new show, First and Scroll. So it's just been a little bit of navigating schedules. But I'm back, and I told y'all, and I promised y'all, I would give y'all a full season's worth of content. And I'm here. I'm here. I want to get right into it. Today, I'm going to be talking about the West tiers. Next week, or next week, I don't want to say next week, but technically next week, maybe Sunday or Monday, I'll do the East tiers and talk about Jared Allen's extension. Shout out to Jared Allen. That is my brother. That's my dog. Shout out to him for getting paid. So I'm definitely going to be talking about that probably on Sunday or Monday. And we are recording again on Monday. So it probably is going to be Sunday, but my shorty is coming over. So I don't know about that, but I'm definitely going to pump that out for you guys either Sunday or Tuesday, Wednesday. Today I am doing the West tiers. I have a nice little picture for you guys today. I kept trying to get it to where I can get on the side. I have to talk to John about that after this episode, but today I'm talking about my West tiers. We just had the Tyus Jones go to the Suns. I thought that was dope. We've pretty much established rosters. We pretty much know what teams are going to look like. So I'm excited to talk about that. So here we go. We're going to bring up my whole little graph of West tiers. I'm going to explain every single tier box. Next episode, I will have the East tiers. I'll have it next to me so you can see my face in the graphic. This one, I couldn't get to it. My son will be here in about 30 to 40 minutes. So I just wanted to get this out for y'all. But let's pull it up on the screen right now. So as you can see right here, this is my West tiers. I will explain the emojis. The emojis, I wanted to add a little fun to it. Honestly, I don't even really feel like I need my face for this. I think I'm just going to explain it, and then y'all kind of just go about it how y'all go about it. But this is my West tiers. I want to explain the bottom to the top. I think for the bottom, I think it's the Cooper Flagg sweepstake. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. For Portland, I love their young talent just because I'm a bit biased in that department. I loved Scoot coming out. I know he had a rocky rookie year, but I love Scoot coming out of college. Not college, pardon me. I love Scoot coming out of the G League, overseas light circuit. I love Shaden Sharp out of high school, his athleticism. Excuse me. I love Anthony Simons, but although they are talking about shopping him this offseason, to talk about moving him, so that could play in the favor of the Cooper Flagg sweepstake. Because listen, ever since Dame, they just traded him, they are in full rebuild mode. I know DeAndre and he finished the year strong, but that's not somebody who you want to continue as your starting caliber center if you want to really compete. Robert Williams is cool, good defensive big, never really healthy. He's on a nice deal. They drafted Chris Murray last offseason along with Scoop. And they got a couple guys in Kamara and stuff like that. They have players. Jabari Walker, he's solid for them. They have a lot of young talent. It's just about finding that one guy that can stick, finding that one star talent that can propel them. With Portland, they're not going to get the big-time free agents. They're not going to get the swing for the fence guys. That's going to be for the big market teams. For Portland, they must hit on drafts. They must hit on drafts. And in the Dame era, they did that to a degree. Wesley Matthews, Nicholas Batum, Damian Lillard, LaMarcus Aldridge. I'm pretty sure all those guys was drafted by Portland. But nonetheless, they've had moments, and I think they have to hit on the draft. And to be in the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes, even if it's just not Cooper, you got Dylan Harper, which I don't think they'll need a guard. So you got Ace Bailey coming in. That's a guy. VJ Edgecombe. You just need talent. And I think with Simons being on the market, that can nab you a first or two first, which would even bring in more young talent. And you got to start finding that primetime superstar. So I think that's why they're in the Cooper Flagg sweepstake. As for Utah, it's Laurie and who else? I like Keontae George, but he was a bit of an inefficient guard last year. Still trying to find his way to play point guard. I do like him. Taylor Hendricks, he jumped on the scene a little bit late last year. I expect him to get more run this year. And they have a couple guys who are up there in age, Jordan Clarkson and whatnot. Colin Sexton, I think, is a really good player, but I think his value would attribute more to a team that's more suited for the playoffs, and same thing with Laurie. I think those guys, Laurie's reaching his prime. You have to start looking to move off those guys and really embrace the full rebuild because I don't have the number off the top of my head. But when Laurie was in the lineup, this team was pretty competitive. And that's not what you want when you're in the Cooper Flagg sweepstake. That's not what you want at all. And I think these two teams in the West, they're going to win some games, but I think they need to really start gearing towards that. We need to be one of the worst teams in the league. We need to start extremely fresh, get some juice in this building, get some really, really great prospect talent. And I think that starts with Cooper Flagg, one of the best players in the country right now, going to Duke. He's going to shine bright, be a great player at Duke. Swiss Army knife, can do it all. And I love Cooper Flagg's game, and I love the fact that Portland or Utah, two teams that are kind of low market, mid market teams, not the biggest free agent destinations, can kind of get a star to kind of gear them in the right way, like the same way we see with Minnesota, Ant-Man, or Memphis and Indiana, Ja and Tyrese. You want those low mid market guys to get these superstars so we can just keep the balance in the league. The next tier for me, I call these guys the rowdy kids. And the reason I call them the rowdy kids, because for using Houston, last year they went on a tear towards the end of the year. Started winning a shit ton of games. You saw like Jalen Green be impressive. And the turn was pretty big when Sengun went out the lineup. Amon Thompson started to play well. But I think for the most part, I call them the rowdy kids because I think this team is going to be really competitive. They may not make the play-in. They may not make the playoffs, but this team is going to be in that horse race, and this team is going to be extremely competitive throughout. And it's going to be an exciting thing to see because this team is reaching that, all right, what are we going to do with this young player? What are we going to do with that young player? They have so much young talent. You can't keep everybody. You can't give everybody minutes. Now you have to start gearing to either make a move for a big-time player, a veteran superstar, or kind of start bringing in those veteran high-level starters and start, pushing for your young players to be stars. You have Sengun, Jalen Green kind of bursting on the scene late. His contract is coming up. You're going to have to figure out if you have to pay him. You got Amon. You just drafted Reed Shepard. Cam Whitmore's on the bench. Jabari Smith is there. Tari Eason is there. So you have these guys. You have to start figuring out who's the guy. And I think they're going to be extremely competitive nonetheless. Ime Udoka has those guys playing hard. They respect him as a coach. And he's going to bring he already brought a different dynamic with Fred VanVleet there too, Dylan Brooks. He has the good veterans there. Now you have to figure out who your stars are. And I think Houston is in a really solid position right now. And they're going to, shake some shit up. For the San Antonio Spurs, I think it's the same thing. I think if you have Victor Wembanyama, it's like you're always going to be in the hunt. I thought they had a good draft picking up Stephon Castle. They have good players. I'm not going to sit here and say they don't. They just need to improve. Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan. Like, they have good players. Trey Jones. You have to continue to improve, continue to get better. And I think this team is going to be competitive. I don't know if they'll be in the play-in. If they're in the play-in, Wemby truly is that great, which I believe he is that great, but there's just so much talent in the West. I don't know if I can see them being in the play-in, but they'll be one of them rowdy kids where they'll cause some havoc, they'll cause some controversy, bust a couple brackets and kick one of the teams out the play-in and maybe shake some shit up. But I am excited for that bracket because I think that bracket can provide the most dangerous scenarios for these other top teams that we're going to talk about because they can win a little bit more games than they should. They can have a little bit more tiebreakers than they need to, or they could cause another team to lose out because they just simply couldn't beat this team or they took this team lightly on a back-to-back night or something like that. So that is my rowdy kids tier. I got the Houston Rockets and the San Antonio Spurs there. And let's move up to the tier, which I think breaks my heart because I have two teams. Well, honestly, it's one down because shout out to PG, but he went out to the East, so I have to pack my bags, head over there to the East. But this is playoff mediocrity. And honestly, I may change the Suns to stealth contenders, the next tier. I don't know yet. They're kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I'll start talking about them first is because Tyus Jones was a good move. They needed a point guard. They needed somebody who had point guard feel, had the ability to slow a game down, speed a game up, had just that self-awareness to, Devin Booker hasn't gotten a shot in a couple possessions. I got to get him going. Kevin Durant hasn't gotten a shot in a couple possessions. I got to get him going. Bradley Beal, same thing. Let's run this pick and roll with Nurkic. Let's slow the pace down. We're turning the ball over too much. Let's get a good shot this possession. Let's not go iso ball. Just somebody with that awareness and that IQ to just be a point guard. And Devin Booker is not that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody's a point guard. I think Tyus Jones is that. The concern for me with this team will be the defensive end and that backup big spot. because I think Kevin Durant is their best defender on the team. I think Ryan Dunn was a great defensive prospect coming out, but offensively, he's going to be hard to play. And I think this team, the struggles with this team was their lack of size and their lack of defensive wings and POA defenders. And I think just as a team defense, they're not the best bunch either. So they're going to rely a lot on offense, which they did last year. But even last year in the regular season, you saw this team in the fourth quarter be absolutely atrocious throughout the year. And that's with times with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. And I understand those guys have missed time, but all year you weren't good in the fourth quarter. It just felt like this team was never going to get it clicking in time for the playoffs. Now you have a full off season, time to figure it out. You've made some solid moves. You brought in Tyus Jones. You brought in Monte Morris. You brought back Royce O'Neal. Like, you have guys. You've made the good moves you needed to make with the money, the little money you had. And although I would love for them to get a backup big, a legit backup big, and I heard Nurkic got skinny in the gym. He's shooting more threes. They do have Mike Budenholzer. It's going to be interesting to see how this team operates on the defensive end, how this team maneuvers, because I think offensively they'll be fine. But you saw in that Minnesota series, when their offense wasn't clicking, they literally couldn't do anything. They couldn't do a single thing. So I think for me, Phoenix is like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, leaning more towards mediocrity, but I don't know if mediocrity is the right word for them. As far as these other teams, I mean, the Clippers, they've made moves. They've made the best moves they can with losing an all-star player. I mean, like, I don't know why people think losing PG is not going to hurt them. This is a guy who, oh, wow, wait, hold. Woo! My fault, y'all. Y'all got that in the ears and the AirPods, and that stink too. But this is a guy who had his most efficient year. Was one of the best three-point shooters in basketball. And I think he complimented James Harden well. I think Kawhi and James Harden would be fine. But if they're not healthy, this is a team that could gear into a play and maybe miss out on the play. And Kawhi misses a certain amount of games. I think their team is good enough to still make the playoffs. You brought in Derrick Jones Jr., who was great for Dallas Mavericks last year. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this team operates with injuries and how they replace Paul George. You brought in 3 good players, but how do you replace that all-star caliber player? How do you get better on the defensive and offensively? How do you make up for it? That's going to be the thing. And I think the Clippers, as long as Kawhi and Harden is healthy, I think they'll be a playoff team. But unfortunately, I don't know if that's going to be the case for Kawhi. He did leave USA. I don't know if it was injury related or not, but that team is going to be watched on for sure. I know Harden signed a couple more years, so it's going to be fun to see. They got a new building. As for Sacramento, I mean, towards the back end of the year, their defense got better. I think their offense is always going to be pretty solid. They brought in DeMar DeRozan. I'm excited to see that dynamic. I'm excited to see how they operate on the offensive end. What's their sets going to look like? How are they going to run 2 to 3 ball dominant players? I would say 2. How are they going to run the Fox, Malik Monk, DeMar, Sabonis lineups? How are they going to look? Keon Ellis, if he can continue to maintain and even get better at that 3 ball, is going to be really good for them. Keegan Murray is going to continue to improve. This is a fun team. I think this team is going to be extremely fun to watch. And I think DeMar DeRozan in the regular season doesn't get talked about enough. He's a really underrated player in the regular season. I think this team will be in the plan. I think if everything goes right, they can be a 6 seed. Injuries can happen. This team DeMar DeRozan has been relatively healthy for a majority of his career, damn near all of his career, honestly. So you can expect him to play most of the year. I like this team, Sacramento. It's just in terms of excitement, fun to watch. In terms of the X's and O's and the roster construction, playoff time, it's going to be tough to see. I'm not a believer in Sabonis and DeMar in the playoffs, and I think Fox is really good. But you're relying heavily on 2 guys that are big on the mid-range, and the Sabonis, who's not really a rim protector, not really a shooter. It's going to be tough. But I do think this is going to be an exciting team. I do think this team is going to be fun to watch. They're going to have a lot of big-time games, and they're going to have a lot of big-time moments this year. It's just going to come down to the playoffs. How are they going to be able to adjust to that? But that's all the way in fucking April. They're in playoff mediocrity because I think they'll be hovering around the 6 to 9 range in terms of just a play-in or playoff team. As for the Golden State Warriors, man, this hurts my damn soul. They lucked out on everybody. They didn't get PG, which they could have. Clippers, I hate them. They didn't get Laurie. What they did do is they brought in Steve Kerr-like players, Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson. Is that enough? I don't think it is. You will be hovering between the 8 to 10 range. Steph Curry is only getting older. He can only do so much. The wash allegations are pretty stupid if you watched them last year towards the beginning of the year. You watched them towards the end. It was a clear I'm gassed. I'm just gassed. I need another guy. That's all it was. I think Steph will be fine. But the problem is this roster is not built to his strength. He cannot carry a team like he once was. I still think he's a top 10 player in the world. I still think he's one of the best scorers in the league. Running him around 50 screens all game at 36, 37 is not ideal. I think Steve Kerr needs to take the offensive system a little bit. Let Steph run a little bit more ISO, pick and rolls. Just let him dictate the offense. It's going to be interesting to see without Klay Thompson how this team operates. They don't have a number 2 scorer. I think that's going to hurt them. Kuminga is expected to get that money. Draymond Green has allegedly said 2022 Wiggins is back. So it's a lot of optimism for Golden State fans if you're reading everything up. But the way Steph has been playing in USA, he hasn't been playing good. I'm not gonna say he has his ups and downs, but washed as allegations. It just doesn't make sense to me. But I think this Golden State team will hover around the 7 to 10 range. They'll be a play-in team, maybe get into the playoffs. It really just depends on how these other guys shape out. I really have to see this team. I mean, last year they probably would be a playoff team if injuries didn't go their way, suspensions and stuff like that. But in the West, like I mentioned, when you're a team that's limited on talent, one injury could really put you down. My next tier is the stealth contenders. And as you can see, there's 3 teams in it. And I think the Lakers are one of them. I think the Lakers, they're a stealth contender because I think regular season-wise, they'll struggle. They've been struggling. I don't know what it is. They just can't seem to lock in. But in the playoffs, outside of Denver, I think this team could give anybody a run for their money when you have LeBron and AD. They are missing a POA defender. They're missing a little bit more shooting. But at the same time, you have LeBron and AD who are still playing the best basketball in the world. You still have complementary role players in Austin Reeves, in Rui Hachimura. I think Rui's solid. Jared Vanderbilt on defense. D'Lo's the tricky one. If D'Lo ever takes his regular season just to the playoff, just for maybe more than what he's done, this team would be really dangerous. But I think this team is still a stealth contender just because you have LeBron and AD. When those guys are clicking in the 7-game series, it's hard to beat. The only thing is, what is JJ Redick going to be? What is JJ Redick going to show us in his rookie year as a head coach? We've seen him and LeBron be on the podcast. JJ's a smart mind. I am so interested to see how this is going to play off. I'm excited. As for the other 2 teams, the Pelicans and the Memphis Grizzlies, with the Pelicans, they were one of the best teams in basketball when Zion was healthy. And then Zion got hurt. The BI trade dynamic, nobody's really seeming to offer for him. You don't really seem like you want to pay him. Herb Jones improved. Trey Murphy improved. You have a nice role. CJ McCollum was sneakily one of the best 3-point shooters in totality in the league, like from every spot. I think he was a 40% shooter on pull-up threes, catch and shoot threes. It was damn near everywhere. He was a 40% 3-point shooter. He was amazing as a shooter last year, just as a player in general. Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, you don't have a center, and that's going to be tricky. But Zion was amazing last year when he was healthy. And I think this team, as long as health is in their favor, which is a tough thing for this team, I think stealth contender is big. I think they can give certain teams that they match up with some fits. I'm not going to speak on who. I feel like that's giving it too much. But in the regular season, I think as long as they're healthy, they'll win a shit ton of games. They'll be one of the best teams in the league that like they were when Zion was healthy. As for the Memphis Grizzlies, everybody knows how I feel about Ja Morant. Everybody knows how I feel about 12. To me, he's one of the 15 best players in the world. And it dawned on me how people had him in those conversations after the Lakers series. Yeah, he didn't play great, but people still had him in top 15 talks. He missed some time. He came back. He was great when he came back, and they were winning when he came back. Got hurt, went out for the season. All of a sudden, he's not in top 20 talks, top 15 talks. He's now the 8th best point guard in the league. He's dropped so much, and I'm trying to figure out. Nobody has said anything about his game or why anybody's better than. It's really nothing. Like, there's no legitimate make sense argument for why he's dropped so low. This team is good. Vince Williams, J.J. Jackson, G.G. Jackson, pardon me, were gems last year. They'll be in the rotation. Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart is going to be healthy this year. They'll be in a rotation. John Morant, Luke Kennard, he's back. They'll be in a rotation. I think this team is still lacking big man depth. I think they're lacking defenders on the wing, not on the wing. I'm sorry, POA defenders, and I think they're lacking shooting. But as a team defense, I think they'll be amazing in the regular season. And I think as long as 12 is there and he's playing his role, and they maybe improve a bit on the half court offense, this team is going to win a lot of games, and this team is going to be a scary team in the West. I think this right here, this is my team that I'm really circling. I'm really big on this team going into next year. I'm really big on this team throughout the year. I know everybody has their one team that people sleep on. This is my team right here, the Memphis Grizzlies. As for the next tier, I think the next two tiers, I could kind of bunch them because I think this tier is still a dog. The reason why I have Dallas and OKC as best of the bunch tier is because they've gotten better from last year. They've made significant moves to get better. Starting with Denver, we'll go a tier under. I still think they're one of the 4 best teams in the league. I still think they can make the finals. Let me say that. Denver is just relying a lot on their kind of 2 timeline thing, maybe not so much, because a lot of their players that are going to be coming off the bench are really young. But I think that's better. I think that will be better than what their bench was last year. I mean, you have Sark at the 5. Not really big on Sark, but Payton, Julian, Russell Westbrook. All right, it's better than Reggie Jackson, DeAndre Jordan, Justin Holiday, in my opinion. And I think it has room to improve. Then the starters are going to be great. Missing KCP is going to be tough, but I believe in Christian Brown. I think Christian Brown will step up and play a huge role for them. And I think he's young, he's athletic. He showed a little bit of the 3 ball. He's a really good defender. He has a little bit more size to him than KCP. I like this team as still being one of the best teams in the West. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Joker and Jamal maneuver through these young players, help them get better, propel them to bigger heights. And if this team can sustain that, they'll be a dangerous team once again. As for Minnesota, there wasn't really much they can do in the offseason department because, like I mentioned with other teams, they're kind of cap tied. They lost Kyle Anderson. They did bring in Rob Dillingham. They traded a pick or 2 for Rob Dillingham. He's going to get significant mention. He's probably going to be the backup guard off the bench, Naz Reid and stuff like that. You need an improvement from Jaden McDaniels for this team to make an uplift. You need an improvement, no doubt. You need Rob Dillingham to be good off that bench. Naz Reid to continue playing like how he plays. This team, Mike Conley, Ant, Jaden, Cat, Rudy Gobert, they're going to win a lot of games in the regular season. You need those bench players to continue to improve. You need Naz Reid and Rob Dillingham. Rob Dillingham is going to be really key for this team's future. But as of this year, that defense is still going to be amazing. And I think as long as their defense is going to be top 3 in the world, they're still going to have a dog in this fight. But the thing is, I don't think they fixed anything that would help them win that Dallas series. And I think Dallas got better from that series alone. They did lose Derrick Jones Jr., but they brought in Klay Thompson. I think bringing in Klay Thompson is pretty tough. Klay Thompson is still 39, 38%. He's still an elite shooter. He was in a role that he shouldn't have been in last year, and it made him look a lot worse. I think playing next to Kyrie, playing next to Luka is going to make him so much better. I think he's just going to be able to hit the 3 ball, guard 3 to 5s, small 5s. He can still guard 3 to 4s pretty well. Dallas for me, and then of course the other moves they made. As a matter of fact, let's look at Klay Thompson's 3-point percentage. Let's check that out real quick. Klay Thompson, let me look that up. Klay Thompson was 39%. 39% is pretty good. But yeah, they're banking on Klay and Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes specifically to get back to his old vibe. Like if he can get back to that Nick year, where he's still a great defender, and plus he was dealing with injuries. Get to that elite 3-point shooting year, I think he'll be really solid for this team. Because then you'll be able to you can plug him in to play defense. You got Klay who can play defense, and they can still shoot the ball at a high level, like a really high level. And Najee Marshall, I don't know if his 3-point shooting was fake or not based off last year because he's only done it once, but he's a really good defender. So that's another guy you bring in a bit more size than Derrick Jones Jr. They've literally improved from their finals roster. I don't see how they can plateau or get worse unless injuries, of course, hurt them. And then the team next over to them, dude, is OKC a brewing monster in the West? I mean, they continue to get better every single year. So we can only expect them to get better this year. J-Dub, SGA, Chet, Kaysen Wallace. Like this team is really good. They brought in Isaiah Hartenstein to kind of fill that five. I'm interested to see their problem. They're not I don't want to say problem. They're gonna be what's gonna be their new schematics now with Hartenstein because he brings a different dynamic. Him and Chet, they ran the five out, with Chet, Dort, J Dub, SGA. Giddy was starting with them. Unfortunately, Giddy wasn't a five out, but now you have a different dynamic. Do you put in Hardenstein? Does he come off the bench and you plug in another shooter like Case and Wallace? But OKC is a different. They're interesting because they're a brewing monster in a sense of they get better every year, and they still have these young players who I think are going to be really exciting. Not to mention, they brought in Alex Caruso, who's one of the best perimeter defenders in the world. Plus, he's a solid shooter, solid passer. Like this team has the proper veteranship, and I think they have the proper stars. I think this team is going to be one of the best teams in the league. And I think it's interesting enough that we're talking about OKC because SGA is playing like an MVP. Like it's you have an MVP caliber player. J Dub, we can only expect to take the leap. Chet is a defensive player of the year candidate. I mean, this team is amazing. How are they going to translate? I'm interested to see the schematics and how Mark Dagnall really shakes up this offense. I know the defense would be amazing, but offensively, you're plugging in players. How are they going to work here? How are they going to work there? I think you're still missing a little bit because what Giddy did provide was solid playmaking. I would never dispute that. So now SGA, you have to take another level. Caruso, step up. Kaysen, step up. J-Dub, step up. So it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see the West because I think the West is going to be super tough, and I'm so excited for the NBA season. But that's going to do it for another episode of Riv Academy. I had a lot of fun just talking about the West and just giving my perspective on what I think is going to happen, giving my perspective on how I think the West is looked at as of today in August 1st, I believe. But thank you guys for watching. I will be dropping another episode this week. I'm going to be cooking out more episodes for sure. Hopefully I have my hair done, but probably not. I've been in the doghouse just straight locked in, getting the scruffy and stuff like that. But thank y'all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.